Hey guys, Alex from 7th Hour Films back again with Vinland Saga. Last time around we had Oath, where basically Thorfinn got knocked out, and in this he met his father again in a very interesting dream where Thor's apologized for not being there for him, and Thorfinn fell down into the evil crevice that took him to hell or purgatory, where all warriors go and fight for the rest of eternity. No matter how rotten their bodies get, they fight and laugh. And atop them all is Askeladd, the man who became a demon to face the demons. So yeah, Askeladd was down there and was basically imparted the lesson of, Thorfinn, you should not be down here. I know I dragged you down here, but you shouldn't be down here. You need to make a change and get out of here. And even though he was being dragged down by the bodies of every person he killed, Thorfinn climbed. He climbed as hard as he could as Askeladd cleared the way for him, and he climbed out of purgatory. And yeah, he woke Einar up because he got knocked on his ass too, and basically made a new vow that he would swear off violence, his new oath against violence. And the two of them are now working as hard as can be on their farm, and the the asshole retainers that they got into a fight with. No one's being punished. Basically, it's just sort of an incident that's going to be let go. So yeah, that's pretty much where we left off. Great, brilliant episode. And of course, I'm excited to see where we're going this time. But yeah, like always, the reaction is down in the description and in the pinned comment for your viewing pleasure. So let's go ahead and jump right into this episode of Vinland Saga. Here we go. So, I'm assuming that since the last episode where we saw Canute, which gave us a 4-year time span from the end of Season 1, I'm assuming that the episodes between that basically show us what Thorfinn and Einar have done, basically, in those 4 years. So, I think it's still 4 years after the events of Season 1. It's just that now, that applies to everything. Both for Canute, where he is currently, and also for Thorfinn and Einar. They've been working at this for 3 years, presuming there was 1 year where Thorfinn was basically on his own before he met Einar. So, that's what I'm assuming we're at with the timeline. So now we've basically just resynced everything. So now we're good. 3 years. It's 3 years since Einar and Thorfinn met. And they finally cut down the last tree. And they don't even need to harvest. They don't even need to harvest it. They just gotta plant all the seeds, and Ketil will take it from there. Now Ketil is on his way to see King Harald. Methinks he won't be seeing King Harald, but perhaps King Canute. And if that is the case, I don't know. Like, I'm trying to think, are we going to get like a reunion between Thorfinn and Canute? But that would only be if A, he takes Thorfinn with him, which he's not, or B, Canute goes to Ketil's farm for whatever reason. I don't know. And I mean, Canute probably doesn't, like, he probably hasn't kept tabs on Thorfinn since he was sold off. I doubt Canute even had any part in that. Like, I'm sure it was like his generals or something. You know, maybe it was even Floki. who, after Thorfinn was arrested for striking Canute, just sold him off. Sold him off into slavery, you know? But now we have to think of, what are we going to do? What are we going to do once we're free? Because nothing else is going to go wrong in the lives of Einar and Thorfinn, I'm sure. It's so frustrating. Go back to Iceland, even if just for a bit, you know? I hope his mother is still alive. I mean, his sister, yeah, Ylva will probably still be alive. I mean, she was free and healthy and strong, you know? I hope his mother is still alive. So it's been, Jesus Christ, 15 years then? He was 6 years old. So yeah, so he's about 21 now. It's been about 15 years since they left and Thor's faced Askeladd. Good lord, man. 15 years. That's crazy. So I hope his mom is still alive. But, I mean, you know, my thought was like, oh, well, what else can he do? You can go to Vinland, man. You can go to Vinland, but no, Thorfinn has a much more ambitious idea. He wants to see it. I mean, at the very least, he just asked, is it possible to end war and slavery? No. I wish, but like, look, Thorfinn, I'm sorry to say, but there will always be human conflict, you know? Now, that's not necessarily a thing of like, well, we shouldn't do anything about it. Obviously, we should still try to stop it and prevent it as much as we can. But it will happen. Some war is always inevitable. In terms of slavery, I suppose, yes, in a way. In a way, yes. Slavery. But that's the thing, it's like, explicit slavery, yes, that technically is gone 1,000 years later. Sitting here 1,000 years after the events of this show, even if it's obviously fictional, but still, it's like 1,000 years later, yes, explicit slavery. That said, and I'm not really going to get into it, but like I feel like there are arguments to be made that there exists a form of slavery still in our society. And I'm sure there are a bunch of people that could give a bunch of names for it, you know? They could give it a bunch of names, you know? But like, I feel like, yes, in a way. Because that's the thing, is like, you know, it's almost strange to think, you know, to sit here 1,000 years later and think, well, we got one of those down, but did we? Are there still people that are being exploited by people with so-called power? Yes, there is in our world. So, in a sense, 1,000 years later, I mean, things have changed, certainly, but it's certainly different, you know? And I mean, you could even argue, like, war is so much different, you know? Like, there is war still in our world. I mean, you look at, like, Russia and Ukraine, that's just a straight-up war, you know? The Israel-Palestine conflict, it's just a straight-up war, you know? Like, there are still wars being fought today. Explicit wars. And even without those, there are still conflicts between countries, you know? Perhaps not on a battlefield with swords and shields, but there are still conflicts. So even if you took those away, the current wars that are happening right now, it still exists, you know? So it's an interesting thing for Thorfinn to say, is it possible to end war and slavery in this world? And it's kind of a sad one to sit here 1,000 years after the fact and just think, no, And again, this is a fictional character from a fictional show, that was made, within the past few years, but takes place 1,000 years ago. But that's the thing. It's like, and I mean, like, and you could even say, because, like, while there's not currently a war being fought in this show, like, the war in England is over, there is no more conflict between England and Denmark, and is now unified under Canute. But how did Canute get to that point, What happened to all of his opposition? They all fell ill and died. And now, even his own brother is dying, But it's... and Thorfinn has even pointed this out before, in Season 1. When he was kind of... I think he was... I can't remember what his name was. It wasn't Ragnar. I messed that up earlier. But Ragnar's brother. What the hell was his name? I can't remember. I can't remember what Ragnar's brother's name is. But Thorfinn was, like, following him. And Gunnar. That was it. Okay. So, like, he was following Gunnar. And... even Thorfinn commented, like, all this, sneaking around and spying on stuff. It's like, is this really what warriors should be doing, So it's like, even back when he still was entrenched as a warrior, war was changing, Like, there was not a great war between Canute and Sweyn and Harold, over the succession of... Denmark and England. It's that, Askeladd just killed Sweyn, and then Canute, all these years later, after bringing peace to England and getting it under his control completely, he poisoned Harold, And all the opposition he had in England, he poisoned them too, Now, it's interesting with Canute's an interesting thing, because you could honestly say that both Thorfinn and Canute are both taking different lessons from Askeladd, where Thorfinn is taking the lesson of, don't do this, don't go to war, don't be a warrior, don't fight people, go live your life apart from this hell, But Canute's going the other way now, Like, Thorfinn, like, we saw Askeladd, with, what the hell were their names? Torgrim and his brother, I can't remember, but when he said to them, when he gave him the bracelet or whatever, the gold, and it was like, you take this on one condition. Don't ever go to a battlefield again. Don't pick up a sword. Don't kill anyone. Don't be a warrior anymore. Go get a farm, get a wife, have some kids, and die at an old age, Like, that's the thing, is so it's basically the thing of, like, Thorfinn is going for that, basically, now. Whereas Canute is taking himself more almost in Askeladd's place, Because Askeladd, we even described him at the beginning of this episode as the demon above the demons, He became a demon to fight demons. He became a Danish warrior because he hates the Danish warriors, He did this to kill Danish warriors, and protect his homeland, basically. Protect his people. And Canute, like, I kind of called him the Demon King, basically, because he is kind of at the top of the demons, He sees all these terrible things, and he says, the only way I'm going to destroy these awful things in our world is to be that awful thing, you know, basically like having, you know, this doesn't work. Two negatives, I guess, sort of cancel each other out. That's not how negatives work, I know, but you get what I mean, you know? Or, you know, he's, like, it's a thing of, like, you know, if you've got, like, it's a thing of, like, imagine, you know, there's an intersection, and there's a family, you know, crossing the street. And there's a dude who's just blasting it, just hauling ass down this street, and he's gonna hit them, and it's gonna be terrible. Canute is the guy that gets in his car and T-bones the fuck out of that guy. You know? He T-bones the crap out of that guy, killing him in the process, but for the greater good, as he would think, you know? So he sort of takes that part of Askeladd, where it's like, you know, the demon that faces the demons. He is the king of the demons. Not necessarily, but that's the thing, is that, you know, then you kind of go into, it's like, well, but does that make Canute a demon? And there's sort of a half and half, I feel like, you know? I don't know if Canute really acknowledges that part of himself, you know? Like, in his head, he just sees it as, you know, this is necessary. If I'm going to create this utopia, I can't have these two nations at war, so there must be one king, basically, you know? And he has to be the king, you know? He can't just, like, relinquish it. You know, maybe let Harold die of old age or anything. Or, if Harold has an heir, God knows what that heir could do. It could screw up Canute's entire plans, you know? So, but it's almost like he hasn't... But even then, just the fact that he is seeing, you know, his father's head, he's hearing his father's words, and he's hearing of, you know, the crown's curse and everything, you almost think that is his mind telling him, you know, hey, what are you doing, you know? Like, this is not, you know, this is not the man that Ragnar raised, you know? Like, this is the cursed king, as Swain said, but this is not who you're supposed to be. But maybe he acknowledges and maybe he doesn't. I would say it's kind of up in the air. Like, he does acknowledge it, but he also has to, you know, for the greater good. But that's the thing, is that they're both Thorfinn and Canute are basically now taking different lessons from Askeladd. And it's a very fascinating thing, you know? It's a very fascinating thing seeing essentially both of their character developments over these past two seasons, of how they interact and how, you know, how these things have affected them, you know? With Canute's being so much earlier on that we saw, but with Thorfinn, only now we're getting more into that, you know? Into how his character has been affected, you know? So it's all great. And I mean, just that, you know, because we haven't seen Harold up to this point. Just the fact that the first time we see Harold, you know, he's just dying. He's already dying. He's about to go, pretty much. And the only flashback we see of him is of when, you know, when they were boys and Harold was a great brother, you know? Like, we haven't seen this other great influence in Canute's life. You know, we've seen Ragnar, sure, but we haven't seen Harold or his impact on Canute. And so seeing that is, you just immediately feel sorry. It's like, we didn't know anything about Harold. He could have been as bad as Swain for all we knew. But instead, it's like, no, you're completely sympathetic, and just immediately within this one episode, you really, really see, it's like, oh, what has Canute become? Is this good? You know, like, yes, maybe he's carrying on Askeladd's, you know, the demon who faces the demons. He is the king of the demons. Thus, he is a demon himself. You know, you think about, well, it is for the greater good and everything. But then it's this episode especially, and you can kind of see it in the last episode we had him in, you know, of, you know, seeing Canute the Poisoner, and seeing, you know, especially through Thorkel, where it's like, you know, he doesn't approve of any of what Canute does. But now, really seeing it in this episode, it's like, what has he become? Is he truly the righteous king that we thought he was going to be in season 1? Or, you know, if he's a demon that rules demons, how far can that actually go without him just truly being a demon, you know? Like, if his father was a demon, and he has to be a demon to defeat demons, But there is a fine line that he is now walking without becoming his father, basically. You know? So, and has, you know, is he truly living up to what Harold said of, you know, be stronger than me, be stronger than father. You have to grow up to be stronger than both of us, you know? Is he doing that? Is he truly doing that? And that, such an interesting thing. So yeah, another brilliant 11 out of 10 episode. Send it to the Library of Congress. It's amazing because it's so fucking good, man. I can't believe. And just as a quick thing, because there's been some Twitter discourse about, like, what is it, the live action Snow White remake or something. And there was some tweet, I couldn't find it again, unfortunately, but there was some tweet where it was either a trailer for that or like the live action Lilo and Stitch or something, some live action thing. And someone was like, I was watching Mob Psycho and my friend came in and was like, oh, turn off all that cartoon shit. Let's watch some actual content or something. And it's like, man, you do not understand how much good can come from animation, you know? And this, I don't even think pushes the boundaries of animation, you know? You could probably have this exact same story in live action and probably be, you know, just as good, but it's like, this just being anime, it's like, please, for the love of God, people need to watch this show. It is so friggin' good, you know? And Mob Psycho is like this, but also pushes the boundaries of animation, you know? So, oh boy. Anyhow, that's my weekly, jerking this show off, basically. So, oh man, I gotta be careful about this, you know? My knees can only hold me so long, you know? So, well. Anywho, why do I always do that? Why do I always make this joke? I don't know. I hope it's funny at all. Hopefully, I don't know. But anyway. But that is basically it. With all of that being said, I'm Alex from 7th Hour Films, and I will see you guys next time. Take care. Alright guys, thanks for watching this video. There's a bunch of links on screen if you want to go click around any of those. There's a playlist with all of my Vinland Saga reactions, as well as another video you can go click on if you want. There's also a subscribe button and a Patreon button on screen, as well as other links in the description if you want to go check out any of those. See you guys later. Of the ones